A colossal stone structure stands silent, its original purpose erased by centuries. This video explores 25 ancient ruins that still baffle experts, places where the accepted timeline of human history seems to unravel. By the end, you will see the past not as a settled fact, but as a living mystery filled with gaps we are still trying to bridge. We will visit a temple built by hunter-gatherers thousands of years before farming, and a city of pyramids aligned with distant stars. How did cultures separated by oceans achieve such similar, impossible precision? What compelled them to build on a scale that defies logic? What do you believe is the most compelling clue our ancestors left behind? The ground beneath those shepherds held a secret older than agriculture itself. Göbekli Tepe is not a city, not a fortress, but something profoundly different. It is a sanctuary, a series of stone circles built from immense pillars, each one carved with foxes, scorpions, vultures, and boars of stunning detail. What makes this place so utterly confounding is its age. This complex was erected around 11,500 years ago, a time when humanity was supposedly roaming in small bands, hunting and gathering for daily survival. The accepted story was clear. First came farming, then surplus food, then specialization, and finally, the spare time and social structure needed to build monuments. Göbekli Tepe turns that entire sequence on its head. Here, the monument came first. The pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, were quarried, shaped, and moved without the wheel, without metal tools, and seemingly without a settled, farming society to support the labor. This suggests a different kind of social glue, a shared belief or purpose so powerful it could mobilize hunter-gatherers across a wide region to create something for the ages. The carvings are not mere decoration, they are a symbolic language, a menagerie of power and myth from a world we can scarcely imagine. Then, as mysteriously as it was built, the entire site was carefully buried around 8,000 years before the Common Era. It was not abandoned to collapse but intentionally filled with earth, as if to preserve it or to put it to rest. This deliberate act is perhaps the most profound puzzle of all. What knowledge or tradition was so sacred that the only way to protect it was to hide it completely from the world? The site forces us to reconsider the very origins of civilization. Perhaps it was not bread that first brought people together in large numbers, but belief. As we contemplate these pillars that predate Stonehenge by 6 millennia, we travel to another continent, to a place where the stones themselves appear to defy the very laws of nature. The seamless stones of Göbekli Tepe speak of a world before writing, but another site reveals a mastery of stone so advanced it appears magical. High in the Peruvian Andes, perched like a stone crown above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, sits the fortress of Sacsayhuamán. Its defining feature is a series of 3 zigzagging walls, built from limestone blocks of such monstrous scale and impossible precision that they seem to belong to the realm of giants. Some of these polygonal stones stand over 25 feet tall and weigh more than 100 tons, equivalent to 2 fully loaded semi-trucks, yet their sheer size is not the true wonder. It is the fit. Each uniquely shaped block, with its complex angles and curves, interlocks with its neighbors so perfectly that not even the thinnest blade can be inserted into the seams. This was accomplished without mortar, without the wheel, and without iron tools. The visual effect is of a colossal, 3-dimensional puzzle where the rock itself appears to have been softened like clay and molded into place. The central mystery is straightforward yet profound. How was this done? The mainstream view holds that Inca stonemasons used harder stones to painstakingly pound and abrade the limestone into shape, a process of unimaginable patience and skill, leveraging vast communal labor. Yet this explanation struggles to fully account for the flawless, intricate joins on such a massive scale. This gap has fueled alternative theories, including the idea of a lost plant-based compound that could temporarily soften stone, or even the speculative use of focused sound. Whatever the method, the result is a structure of breathtaking seismic stability. The flexible, interlocking design allowed the walls to sway during earthquakes and then settle back into place, a feat of engineering that has kept them standing for centuries. But Sacsayhuamán was far more than a fortress. Its alignment and its relationship to the temples and plazas of Cusco below suggest a deep ceremonial and astronomical purpose. The zigzag walls may have represented the teeth of a puma, the animal whose shape the city of Cusco was said to form. This was a place where architecture, cosmology, and spiritual belief were fused into stone. The knowledge required for such work represents a pinnacle of Inca technology, a sophisticated understanding of geometry, geology, and physics that seems to have faded after the Spanish conquest. What whispers of that lost knowledge might still be locked within those seamless joins? To find another civilization that shaped its world with equal ambition, we must journey from these mountain peaks into the heart of a suffocating jungle. While the stones of Sacsayhuamán stand as undeniable proof of a lost craft, other ruins exist in the realm of tantalizing whispers. Deep in the heart of southern Africa, the vast, sun-scorched expanse of the Kalahari holds a legend that has stubbornly persisted for over a century. It is the story of a lost city, sometimes called the Great Zimbabwe of the Desert. The tales began with early European explorers and travelers who reported hearing from local communities about massive, abandoned stone structures far inland. Later, sporadic aerial surveys seemed to show strange geometric patterns and lines suggestive of foundations and walls, etched into the remote landscape of Botswana. The idea is captivating, a sophisticated stone-building civilization flourishing in an arid region where history records no such kingdom. It would imply a previously unknown hub of trade, culture, and engineering, a network that could completely redraw our map of pre-colonial southern Africa. The bafflement for experts is not a lack of curiosity, but a profound lack of consensus. What are these formations, if they even exist as described? Skeptics argue they are likely natural geological outcrops, the kind of wind-sculpted rock that can easily deceive the eye from above. Others propose they could be the scattered, simple stone enclosures used for temporary cattle posts by nomadic herders over centuries, gradually accumulating into shapes that look planned. Yet the legend endures, fueled by the sheer difficulty of finding out for sure. The proposed locations are profoundly remote, a challenging environment of sand, heat, and sparse water that has protected its secrets well. Organizing a definitive, large-scale archaeological expedition to conclusively survey and excavate such an area is a monumental task, so the mystery persists in a fascinating limbo. It represents the powerful intersection of oral history, tantalizing but ambiguous clues, and the harsh reality of fieldwork. It challenges a comfortable historical narrative by asking a simple, haunting question. What if a major chapter of the human story is still out there, not carved in obvious stone, but waiting silently beneath the shifting dunes? This notion of a civilization lost to time and landscape finds a startling parallel on a remote Pacific island, where the evidence is undeniable, but the creators are utterly silent. Their solemn gaze is fixed not on the sea, but on the land they once called home. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth, a speck of volcanic rock in the vast emptiness of the Pacific. Yet its people achieved something monumental, carving nearly 900 massive stone figures, known as Moai, from the soft rock of the Rono Reraku quarry. The immediate mystery is one of sheer physics. How do you move a statue averaging 13 feet tall and weighing 14 tons, with some giants reaching over 30 feet and 70 tons, across miles of rugged, hilly terrain to stone platforms called ahu along the coast? The islanders had no wheels, no draft animals, no metal. For a long time, this was presented as an inexplicable paradox, a sign of a lost, advanced technique. Modern experiments have offered a compelling and elegantly simple answer. By using ropes to rock a moai carefully from side to side, teams can indeed make the statue appear to walk forward in a swaying motion. This method, rooted in oral tradition, proves the task was possible, but possible is not the same as easy. The real bafflement for experts shifts from how to why and at what cost. Coordinating such a perilous operation for hundreds of statues would have required a highly organized society with immense communal will. Each journey was a ritual, a dangerous act of faith and engineering. The moai were not deities but representations of deified ancestors, their backs to the ocean to watch over the living communities. Their placement was a statement of lineage, power, and connection to the land. This makes the island's later history all the more poignant. When European explorers arrived in the 18th century, they found a society in crisis, and most of the moai toppled, lying face down. The reasons for this fall are complex and debated. It may have been linked to internal conflict, a shifting of religious beliefs, or perhaps a symbolic rejection of the old order. This event is intertwined with the island's ecological story. Pollen studies reveal Rapa Nui was once covered in a lush palm forest. To move the moai, vast quantities of timber were needed for ropes, sledges, and rollers. The very act of honoring the ancestors may have gradually stripped the island bare, leading to soil erosion, food shortages, and societal collapse. The moai thus stand or lie as profound symbols of human ambition. They represent a breathtaking cultural achievement, a spiritual dialogue with stone, and a sobering lesson about the delicate balance between a society's aspirations and the environment that sustains it. From this story of isolation and introspection, we turn to a ruin that looks outward, its design locked in an eternal conversation with the sky. Rows of silent sentinels march across the Breton landscape in a display of order so vast it defies simple explanation. The Carnac stones in France are not a single monument, but a sprawling complex of over 3,000 prehistoric standing stones arranged in precise, parallel lines that stretch for kilometers along the coast. To walk among them is to feel a profound sense of intention, as if you are moving through the frozen architecture of a forgotten mind. The scale is what first overwhelms. There are three major groupings: Manek, Camario, and Kaleskan, each containing hundreds of granite menhirs placed in rows that sometimes run 10 or 12 stones deep. These are not the haphazard leftovers of a field clearing. They are a deliberate, colossal project that would have consumed generations of labor. The central mystery is not who built them. We know they were Neolithic farming communities over 6,000 years ago, but why? What vision was so compelling that it drove people to shape the very land on this staggering scale? The most enduring theory points to the heavens. Certain alignments correspond with the rising and setting of the sun and moon during key points in the yearly cycle, like the solstices. This suggests the rows could have functioned as a gigantic calendar or observatory, a way to track time and seasons etched permanently into the earth. Another idea proposes they were a sacred processional path, a corridor for rituals that connected the community to the spiritual realm. More speculative theories even suggest the stones, planted deep into the ground, could have acted as a primitive seismic detector, with the alignment sensitive to vibrations from the earth. Yet the site offers frustratingly few clues beyond the stones themselves. Unlike other Neolithic sites, there are no grand burial mounds or clear temple structures directly associated with the alignments. This absence is itself a clue. It implies the purpose was not about housing the departed or a central deity, but about the act of procession, alignment, and collective movement through a space charged with meaning. The effort speaks of a society with remarkable social cohesion. Quarrying, transporting, and erecting these stones, some weighing tens of tons, required a shared goal that transcended individual families. It was a statement of identity, a way to claim and shape their territory in a manner that would endure for millennia. The stones do not shout their purpose, they whisper it in the language of geometry and alignment. They ask us to consider what a society values enough to build not for a century, but for eternity. This pursuit of eternal meaning through stone finds a far more flamboyant and intricate expression in a city carved not from bedrock, but from rose-colored cliffs. The scattered stones of Pumapunku look less like a ruin and more like a blueprint exploded into 3 dimensions. Nestled within the greater Tiwanaku complex in the high plains of Bolivia, this terraced platform mound presents a scene of profound and precise destruction. It is a field of shattered andesite and red sandstone blocks, some weighing well over 100 tons, that appear to have been designed by a master engineer with an obsession for geometric perfection. The most iconic are the so-called H-blocks, massive stone forms carved with a series of symmetrical recesses that look like the connectors for some unimaginably large piece of furniture. What baffles experts is not just their size but their execution. The surfaces of these blocks are flawlessly smooth, with precise right angles and intricate notches cut into the incredibly hard stone. Some faces have shallow, interlocking channels carved into them, suggesting they were meant to fit together with other stones using a kind of stone joinery that would make a modern cabinet maker envious. The precision is so consistent that many of the H-blocks are virtually identical to one another, hinting at a system of standardized modular construction, a concept thought to be millennia ahead of its time. The Tiwanaku culture, which flourished here between the 6th and 11th centuries, is known to have used stone, copper tools, and abrasive sand for their work. Mainstream archaeology points to generations of unimaginable skill, patience, and communal effort as the explanation. They likely pounded the stone with harder rocks, using sand and water to grind the surfaces to that impossible smoothness over years of painstaking labor. Yet the visual evidence is so startling that it has fueled endless speculation about lost tools or even forgotten techniques for softening stone. Perhaps the greater mystery than how they were made is what happened here. The site looks catastrophic, as if a titanic force swept through a perfectly assembled architectural kit, scattering the components like a child's toys. Geological evidence points to a possible massive flood from nearby Lake Titicaca, or a devastating seismic event that may have lifted and tossed these multi-ton blocks with terrifying ease. This layer of natural disaster over human ingenuity creates a haunting duality. Pumapunku stands as a testament to both the soaring ambition of an ancient civilization and the utter power of nature to undo even the most precise human work. It is a puzzle where the pieces are clear, but the picture they were meant to form is lost, leaving us to stare at fragments of a forgotten technology. From this scene of ancient devastation, we journey to a jungle empire that built not to defy nature, but to ascend into its very heart. Its 5 central towers pierce the jungle canopy like stone lotus buds, a vision of cosmic order carved from sandstone. Angkor Wat is more than a temple, it is a universe in miniature, a staggering act of architectural ambition designed to mirror the home of the gods. Built in the early 12th century under King Sacsayhuamán II, this complex is the largest religious monument ever constructed, a statement of power and piety so immense it boggles the mind even today. While its beauty is instantly captivating, the true genius of Angkor Wat lies hidden in its precise, encoded design. The entire structure is a literal map of Hindu cosmology. The vast moat surrounding the temple represents the primordial cosmic ocean. The concentric galleries and walls symbolize the mountain ranges that ring the mythical Mount Meru, the axis of the universe. The 5 iconic towers at the heart of the complex are the mountain's peaks. To walk from the outer gate toward the central sanctuary is to embark on a spiritual journey from the earthly realm to the divine. This symbolic precision is matched by an engineering feat of almost incomprehensible scale. The temple is built from an estimated 5 to 10 million sandstone blocks, each one weighing up to 1.5 tons. These stones were quarried from a mountain over 30 miles away and transported along a network of canals, a logistical puzzle that would demand immense planning and labor. The carving itself is another layer of mystery. The walls are covered in over 1,200 square meters of intricate bas-reliefs depicting Hindu epics, celestial dances, and historical processions. The detail is so fine and so abundant that it would have required armies of master artisans working for decades. How did the Khmer Empire coordinate such a project? Recent technological eyes have given us a startling answer. Airborne laser surveys, known as LiDAR, have penetrated the dense jungle canopy to reveal the ghostly footprint of a vast, low-density metropolis sprawling around the temple. What was once thought to be a ceremonial center isolated in the wilderness was, in fact, the bustling heart of a gigantic urban network. Canals, roads, ponds, and house mounds stretch to the horizon, suggesting a population in the millions and a level of social organization far beyond previous estimates. This was not just a temple built for the gods, it was the nucleus of a sophisticated hydraulic city, an empire that mastered water to feed its people and move its mountains of stone. The cosmological encoding extends even to the sun. The temple's Western orientation is unusual for a Hindu temple dedicated to Vishnu, but it serves a profound purpose. During the spring equinox, observers standing at the western entrance witness the sun rise in perfect alignment directly over the central tower. This was no accident, but a deliberate fusion of astronomy and architecture, a moment when the earthly temple and the celestial order became one. Angkor Wat, therefore, stands as a triple mystery. It is a puzzle of symbolic meaning, a marvel of pre-industrial logistics, and a testament to a lost urban civilization we are only beginning to comprehend. It forces us to ask what a society is capable of when its spiritual vision, its royal authority, and its communal labor are all directed toward a single, heaven-reaching goal. This mastery over water and landscape invites us to look for other empires that shaped their world with similar ambition, perhaps even beneath the very waves that once sustained them. Beneath the waves off Japan's westernmost island, the ocean floor holds a shape that does not belong. The Yonaguni monument is a colossal, stepped formation rising from a depth of about 25 meters, its silhouette against the blue suggesting the handiwork of intelligence. Divers navigate around what appear to be vast, flat terraces, sheer walls meeting at sharp, 90-degree angles and clean, linear steps ascending like a submerged stadium. There are features that look unmistakably crafted, circular depressions that could be quarry marks, and narrow channels that seem too straight and purposeful to be random. The central question that divides experts is profound in its simplicity. Is this a purely natural geological wonder, or is it the drowned architecture of a forgotten human past? The rock itself is sandstone, a material known to fracture along clean plains, especially in an area as tectonically active as this, where earthquakes and powerful currents have sculpted the seabed for millennia. Most geologists see a spectacular example of natural jointing and erosion, where the layers of rock have split and slumped to create an astonishingly regular, staircase-like appearance. They argue that nature, given enough time and force, is a master architect of seemingly impossible geometry. Yet the sheer accumulation of regular features gives even skeptics pause. The monument's most iconic structure, a tall, rectangular pillar nicknamed the Turtle, stands apart from the main formation with a symmetry that feels deliberate. The parallel lines, the repetitive right angles, and the sheer scale of the terraces present a visual argument that is hard to dismiss. If even partially shaped by human hands, the implications are staggering. Sea level was significantly lower during the last ice age, meaning this area would have been dry land until roughly 10,000 years ago. A man-made or modified Yonaguni would point to a prehistoric culture in the region with the capability and desire to shape the landscape on a monumental scale, long before the accepted dawn of Japanese civilization. This would not just rewrite a local history, it would challenge our global map of where and when complex societies could arise. The debate endures because the evidence is trapped in a frustrating middle ground, perfectly ambiguous. There are no clear artifacts, no pottery shards or tools found on the structure itself to provide a smoking gun. It exists in a silent, watery realm, its secrets guarded by currents and coral. This underwater enigma forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge. It asks how we distinguish the products of a conscious mind from the breathtaking artistry of natural processes over eons. Whether a masterpiece of geology or a sunken relic of a lost epoch, Yonaguni serves as a humbling reminder that our planet still holds chapters of its story in places we are only beginning to explore. From this submerged mystery, we ascend to a desert plateau where the art is not hidden, but drawn on such a colossal scale it can only be seen from the heavens. Their vast artistry is invisible from the ground, a secret kept between the earth and the sky. The Nazca lines are not a ruin in the traditional sense, but a canvas. Across nearly 200 square miles of Peru's arid Pampa Colorado desert, the ancient Nazca people etched a sprawling gallery of geoglyphs by a remarkably simple method. They carefully removed the dark, sun-baked surface stones to expose the lighter, chalky soil beneath. This created stark, contrasting lines that have endured for 2 millennia. The simplicity of the technique, however, belies the staggering complexity of the result. From the ground, you see only shallow paths or indistinct trenches. But ascend to the viewpoint of a bird or a modern aircraft and the desert floor transforms. Straight lines run for miles, razor-sharp across the landscape. Geometric shapes like perfect trapezoids and triangles stretch across entire hillsides. And then there are the biomorphs, the giant figures that have made Nazca famous. A hummingbird with a beak longer than a bus, a spider over 150 feet wide, a monkey with a spiraling tail. These are not rough sketches, but masterpieces of proportion and flowing line, executed on a scale that defies human perspective. This is the core of the mystery that has captivated and baffled experts for decades. The Nazca culture, which flourished from around 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after, created these monumental drawings with a precision that suggests sophisticated mathematical and surveying knowledge. They likely used simple stakes and ropes to plot out the designs, scaling them up from smaller models with an intuitive grasp of geometry. Yet the undeniable fact remains, the creators themselves could never have seen their completed work as we do. They walked alongside the lines, but the full, awe-inspiring image was reserved for a viewpoint far above. This has led to the enduring question, who were these drawings for? The most accepted theories are deeply rooted in the Nazca worldview and their harsh environment. Some researchers note that many lines align with the rising and setting points of the sun, moon, and certain stars during solstices or other key dates, suggesting a function as a gigantic astronomical calendar, marking times for planting or ceremony. Others see them as sacred pathways, walked during rituals to connect with ancestor spirits or deities believed to reside in the mountains and sky. The very act of walking the lines may have been a form of prayer or procession. Perhaps the most compelling theory connects the lines directly to the most precious resource in that desert landscape, water. Recent studies have shown that several of the longest straight lines and many of the trapezoids point directly toward sources of groundwater in the distant foothills. In an environment where rain might fall only once a decade, controlling and appealing for water was a matter of survival. The geoglyphs, then, could have been a form of ceremonial offering, a massive prayer etched into the earth itself to invoke the deities of fertility and rain. The animal figures themselves may have held symbolic power, the hummingbird perhaps connected to the life-giving rains from the mountains. This interpretation transforms the lines from mere art into a profound dialogue between a people and their ecosystem, a desperate and beautiful attempt to communicate with the forces that govern their existence. The preservation of these fragile drawings is its own minor miracle, a gift of the unique local climate, which is virtually windless and receives almost no rain. For 2,000 years, the lines have slept undisturbed on the desert floor, waiting for the age of flight to finally reveal their secret audience. They stand as a testament to human ingenuity driven by spiritual need, a message written so large its meaning could only be fully understood from the heavens. To find another civilization that communicated with the divine from a great height, we must climb from this desert canvas to a fortress in the clouds. Its terraces cling to the mountain ridge like steps carved for giants. Machu Picchu is more than a postcard. It is a conversation between human genius and the raw power of the Andes. While popular history often labels it a royal retreat for the Emperor Pachacuti, a sort of ancient country estate, the reality that emerges from its stones is far more profound and spiritually charged. The sheer inaccessibility of the site is the first clue. Why expend unimaginable effort to build a city of such refined beauty on a razorback ridge, 2,400 meters above the Urubamba River, surrounded by vertiginous peaks? This was not a convenient getaway, it was a destination. The journey itself was likely part of the purpose. The architecture confirms this sacred intent. The entire complex is a meticulously crafted reflection of Inca cosmology. The Temple of the Sun, with its curved wall and window perfectly aligned to catch the June solstice sunrise. The Temple of the Condor, where natural rock formations were shaped to resemble the outstretched wings of the sacred bird, a messenger to the upper world. And at the highest point, the Intihuatana stone, a carved granite pillar whose name translates to the hitching post of the sun. This was no simple sundial. Researchers believe it functioned as a sophisticated astronomical observatory, its angles and shadows marking the equinoxes and solstices, literally tying the sun to the earth in ritual to ensure its return and the continuation of the seasons. The stonework itself is a silent sermon on harmony. Without mortar, the granite blocks fit together with such precision that they have withstood centuries of earthquakes, the stones dancing and then settling back into place. This technique was not merely practical, it was philosophical. The Inca saw the living world as filled with sacred energy, and their architecture sought to bind seamlessly with that spirit, to honor and not conquer the mountain. This integration extends to the vista itself. Key structures align with the apus, the sacred mountain peaks that were considered protective deities. Machu Picchu was not built on the landscape, it was woven into a sacred geographic and celestial web. The logistics of its construction are a staggering puzzle. How did workers without wheels or iron quarry, shape, and lift those multi-ton stones up the steep slopes? The answer lies in an empire-wide system of collective labor and an intimate knowledge of leverage, ramps, and rope. Yet the greatest mystery may be its end. The city was inhabited for less than a century before being carefully abandoned around the time of the Spanish conquest in the 16th century. It was not destroyed or sacked, but seemingly vacated in an orderly fashion. Why? Perhaps to protect its sanctity from the invading foreigners, or because the societal collapse that followed the conquest made its maintenance impossible. The result was that the jungle reclaimed it, and it slept, hidden from all but a few local people, until its scientific revelation in 1911. This intentional withdrawal adds a final layer of poignancy. Machu Picchu stands as a perfectly preserved snapshot of Inca spiritual and engineering ideals, a city that achieved its purpose so completely that its people felt they could leave it to the mountains and the sky, a prayer rendered permanently in stone. Its treasury facade glows with a color born of the desert itself, a rose-red hue that seems to hold the last light of the sun. Petra is a city of impossible beauty, carved not from stone but directly into the living rock of southern Jordan's cliffs. For centuries, it was the glittering capital of the Nabatean Arabs, a people who mastered the most precious commodity in the arid world, water. While the iconic tomb known as Al-Khosneh, or the Treasury, captures every visitor's imagination, the true genius of Petra is hidden in the wadis and canyons that surround it. This was not a city that simply existed in the desert. It was a city that defeated the desert through sheer ingenuity. The Nabateans transformed a seasonal flood zone into a permanent oasis, supporting a population that may have reached 30,000 at its peak. They achieved this with a hydrological network of breathtaking sophistication. They built massive dams to divert destructive flash floods into a labyrinth of channels. They carved intricate systems of terracotta pipes and open aqueducts into the cliff faces, guiding water for miles. And they chiseled countless cisterns into the rock, some capable of holding millions of gallons, creating a resilient reservoir system that could last through years of drought. This was water management on a civic scale, a testament to a deep, empirical understanding of hydrology, geology, and seasonal patterns developed over generations without any modern instruments. The mystery for experts is the precision of this knowledge. How did they calculate flow rates and storage volumes so accurately? How did they maintain and clean this vast network without metal tools or modern engineering? Their system was so effective it even allowed for the cultivation of gardens and possibly small orchards within the city walls, a splash of defiant green in the rust-colored landscape. This mastery of water raises deeper questions about the society itself. The water was not just for survival, it was a source of wealth, control, and ceremony. The great tombs, like the Treasury, whose exact ritual purpose remains debated, were more than final resting places. They were statements of power and piety, positioned prominently along the processional way where water also flowed. The control of water and the performance of ritual were likely intertwined, with the Nabatean elite using both to cement their authority. This makes the city's eventual silence so poignant. After Roman annexation in the 2nd century, and as maritime trade routes shifted, Petra's strategic importance faded. The meticulous water system, requiring constant communal upkeep, began to fail. Without that lifeblood, the city gradually emptied, its grand facades left to the wind and sand. Petra, therefore, stands as a dual wonder. It is a monument to artistic grandeur, yes, but more profoundly, it is a monument to human adaptation. It shows us that a civilization's greatest achievement is not always what it builds for the gods, but what it builds to sustain life itself. From this engineered miracle of desert hydrology, we journey to a very different landscape, where the mystery is not carved into cliffs, but scattered across a grassy plain in the form of thousands of giant stone jars. They stand in silent clusters across the highland grass, like giant vessels forgotten by some ancient race of giants. The Plain of Jars in Laos is a megalithic landscape of haunting simplicity and profound mystery. Thousands of stone jars carved from solid sandstone and granite are scattered in groups across the Xiang Quang Plateau. Some are modest, others tower over 8 feet tall and weigh several tons, their rims worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. Dating from the Iron Age, roughly 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after, these objects are not accompanied by grand temples or city walls. They are the primary artifact of a people who have otherwise left almost no trace. the central question is as straightforward as it is elusive. What were they for? The most persistent theory, supported by some archaeological finds within and around the jars, is that they were part of an elaborate funerary culture. Researchers suggest they might have been used as vessels for a practice known as excarnation, where a body would be placed inside to decompose naturally before the bones were collected for a final burial. Alternatively, they could have held the cremated remains of important individuals. Yet, no single discovery has provided a definitive answer. This ambiguity is part of the site's power. It forces us to confront the limits of our understanding, to acknowledge that a widespread, deeply meaningful ritual can leave behind such monumental evidence while obscuring its precise nature. The effort involved speaks of a society with strong shared beliefs and impressive organization. Quarrying these jars from distant rock outcrops, shaping them with iron tools, and transporting them across rugged terrain was a colossal undertaking. The arrangement of the jars in clusters, some containing just a few, others hundreds, suggests a social geography, perhaps marking the territories of different clans or serving specific communities for ceremonial gatherings. The variety in size and shape hints at regional variations or evolving traditions over centuries. Tragically, unlocking these secrets has been perilously slow. The plateau was heavily bombed during the Vietnam War, leaving the landscape littered with unexploded ordnance. This has made archaeological work not just difficult, but deadly, restricting access and slowing research to a painstaking crawl. Each jar cleared and studied represents a triumph over a more recent, painful history. The jars, therefore, exist in a dual silence. They guard the secrets of an ancient people, and they stand as solemn witnesses to the modern conflicts that have further sealed those secrets away. They remind us that history is not always buried by time alone, but sometimes by the scars of events that followed. This field of stone vessels points to a complex, sophisticated culture we can only glimpse through a fragmented lens, a society that invested its greatest labor not in palaces for the living, but in mysterious containers for the journey after life. The desire to build with cyclopean, enduring stone for the realm of ritual finds a parallel in a city whose very walls seem to whisper of a forgotten age of giants. Their stonework speaks a language of stability known across the ancient world. In the bustling modern city of Tarragona on Spain's Mediterranean coast, a quiet enigma is embedded directly into the urban fabric. Here, sections of the ancient city walls, known locally as the Murals de Tarragona, are not the neat, squared-off blocks of Roman engineering for which the area is famous. Instead, they are built from colossal, irregular polygonal stones, fitted together without a speck of mortar in a style so distinctive it has a name: Cyclopean masonry. These are not Roman walls. They are far older, a foundation layer of mystery upon which a later empire built. The stones are massive, some weighing several tons, and they are shaped with multiple angles that interlock with their neighbors in a complex, three-dimensional puzzle. The visual similarity to sites like Sacsayhuamán in Peru or the ancient citadels of Mycenae in Greece is startling and immediate. It is the same solution, appearing on continents separated by vast oceans. The walls in Tarragona date to a period long before Roman conquest, likely constructed between the 6th and 3rd centuries before the Common Era by the indigenous Iberian peoples, or perhaps by an even earlier, shadowy pre-Indo-European culture. The technical skill on display is undeniable. This was not haphazard piling of rocks. It was a deliberate, sophisticated method chosen for its incredible strength. The interlocking nature of the polygonal blocks created a flexible structure, allowing the walls to shift and settle during earthquakes without collapsing, a vital feature in a seismically active region. This raises the profound question that baffles researchers. How do we explain such a specific and advanced technique appearing in seemingly disconnected cultures? One school of thought champions the idea of independent invention. It is the concept of convergent technological evolution. When faced with the same fundamental problems, like building stable, monumental walls in earthquake zones without modern mortar, brilliant minds in different parts of the world may simply arrive at the same elegant solution. The polygonal style, with its inherent flexibility and strength, is a supremely logical answer to that universal challenge. Yet, the striking stylistic resemblance goes beyond mere function. The aesthetic, the particular way of shaping and fitting these giant puzzles, feels like a shared architectural language. This has led other scholars to cautiously explore the possibility of very ancient diffused knowledge. Could there have been faint, long-forgotten threads of contact or shared ancestral building traditions that spanned the Mediterranean and beyond, carried by early seafarers or migratory peoples? The truth is, we may never know for certain. The builders of Tarragoni's first walls left no written records. Their story was overwritten by the monumental inscriptions and clear history of their Roman successors, who simply incorporated these formidable older walls into their own city defenses. Today, these silent, giant stones are a humbling reminder. They tell us that before the legions, before the written history we so heavily rely on, the Iberian Peninsula was home to a society with the communal will, the stoneworking mastery, and the visionary ambition to build for the ages. They mastered a craft that echoes around the globe, asking us what other threads of connection might lie buried beneath the layers of more familiar history. To find another civilization that built with a vision just as grand, we must travel from the edge of Europe to the very heart of the African continent. Its enigmatic gaze has watched empires rise and fall for millennia. The Great Sphinx of Giza is the world's most famous monumental sculpture, a colossal fusion of a lion's body and a human head carved directly from the bedrock of the plateau. Officially, its story is settled. Mainstream Egyptology attributes its construction to Pharaoh Khafre around 2,500 years before the Common Era, positioning it as a timeless guardian of his nearby pyramid complex. The Sphinx is seen as a royal portrait, a depiction of the king as the powerful, vigilant sun god. Yet, a closer look at its weathered body reveals a geological puzzle that challenges this entire timeline. The core controversy centers on the patterns of erosion etched deep into the limestone walls of the Sphinx enclosure. The statue itself and the surrounding trench show deep, vertical fissures and undulating, scalloped channels. Some geologists argue this is classic water erosion, the kind caused not by wind and sand, but by thousands of years of heavy, sustained rainfall. This presents a profound problem. The climate of the Giza Plateau has been hyper-arid, a desert for at least the last 5,000 years. To produce such erosion, these scientists propose, the Sphinx must be far older. They point to a period between 7,000 and 9,000 years before the Common Era, when the region experienced a much wetter climate. This Sphinx water erosion hypothesis is, to put it mildly, fiercely contested. Mainstream archaeologists counter that the weathering can be fully explained by a combination of factors: the abrasive action of wind-blown sand, chemical weathering from morning dew and rare but torrential rainstorms, and the effects of salt crystallization from groundwater. They see the geology as consistent with the Old Kingdom timeline. This is not merely an academic debate. It strikes at the heart of our historical narrative. If the erosion argument holds, it implies a sophisticated, monumental building culture in Egypt millennia before the recognized dawn of its civilization. A culture whose legacy was perhaps adopted and repurposed by later pharaohs like Khafre. The mystery deepens with the statue's own damaged state. The Sphinx's nose is famously missing, a loss often wrongly blamed on Napoleon's troops. Historical accounts suggest it was gone centuries earlier, possibly deliberately removed during a period of iconoclasm. Its ceremonial beard, fragments of which are in the British Museum, was likely a later addition. Between its massive paws lie the ruins of a temple, its purpose still unclear, perhaps a place for offerings to this stone guardian. So what is the truth? Is the Sphinx a proud monument of the Old Kingdom, or a relic from a forgotten epoch, a pre-pharaonic masterpiece that the ancient Egyptians themselves inherited? The passionate inquiry continues because the stakes are so high. It asks us to consider how well we truly know the timeline of human achievement. Does this silent guardian hold secrets from a time when the Sahara was green, secrets waiting to be fully understood? Beside this colossal sentinel stands a pyramid that presents a different kind of puzzle, one not of age, but of impossible precision. Its perfect geometry is a silent scream of precision against the desert sky. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu around 2,500 years before the Common Era, is the last of the original 7 wonders still standing. Its staggering size is just the beginning of the mystery. The real bafflement lies in the details, in a level of exactitude that seems to whisper of knowledge we struggle to attribute to its age. Consider its placement. The pyramid is aligned to the cardinal points with an accuracy that defies simple explanation. Its base is nearly a perfect square, with sides averaging about 755 feet, and the difference in length between the longest and shortest sides is less than 2 inches. This is a margin of error of just 0.05%. A feat of surveying over 13 acres of ground that would be impressive even with modern laser equipment. More astonishingly, the pyramid is oriented to true north with an error of only 3/60ths of a single degree. This precision was achieved thousands of years before the magnetic compass. How did they do it? The most plausible theory involves tracking the circumpolar stars, using a simple yet painstaking method of observing the rising and setting of a single star over many nights to find the celestial pivot point. But the consistency required to translate that astronomical observation into a construction project of this magnitude is almost beyond belief. Then there is the mathematics seemingly encoded in its form. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to its height is remarkably close to 2 times pi. The dimensions of the king's chamber incorporate the Pythagorean triangle proportions of 3, 4, and 5, a mathematical relationship not formally described until over 2,000 years later. Whether these were intentional mathematical messages from the architects or simply the happy byproduct of a chosen slope angle is a debate that has raged for centuries. Either way, the structure embodies a harmony of proportion that feels deliberate. The construction logistics are the grandest puzzle of all. The pyramid is composed of an estimated 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons, with some of the granite monoliths in the burial chamber exceeding 50 tons. The mainstream and most widely accepted theory involves a massive, straight ramp or a series of zigzagging ramps built against the rising structure, with workers using sledges, ropes, and rollers to inch the stones upward. Yet the physics of such a ramp, especially in the final stages, become mind-bending. The volume of the ramp material would have rivaled the pyramid itself, and its construction and dismantling would have been a project of equal magnitude. This has led to alternative ideas, like an internal spiral ramp corkscrewing up within the pyramid's own body, or even theories involving the use of water-filled counterweights. No single theory has yet provided a complete, universally accepted answer. The mystery only deepens with modern technology. Recent scans using cosmic ray muon detectors have revealed large, unexpected voids within the pyramid, one above the Grand Gallery and another near the north face. These are not small cracks, but substantial empty spaces whose purpose is utterly unknown. They could be structural relief chambers, intentionally left to distribute weight, or they could be entirely separate, sealed rooms. This discovery is humbling. It tells us that even after millennia of study, this most famous of ancient monuments still holds physical secrets in its heart. The pyramid, therefore, is more than a tomb. It is a crystallized moment of a civilization's absolute capability. It represents a pinnacle of administrative organization, of quarrying, transport, astronomy, geometry, and communal labor orchestrated on a scale that is difficult to fathom even with our modern perspective. It stands as a permanent question, asking us not just how it was built, but what kind of societal vision and shared belief could possibly motivate such an eternal, precise, and silent statement in stone. From this zenith of desert engineering, we plunge into the vibrant, chaotic heart of a jungle metropolis where the stones tell a very different story. Its stone temples rise from the emerald canopy like mountains made by human hands. Tikal was not just a city, it was a superpower of the Maya world, a sprawling urban heart that pulsed with life for centuries. At its height, around 750 years after the Common Era, it was a metropolis of perhaps 100,000 people, a hub of trade, politics, and profound spiritual ceremony. The scale of its construction is the first layer of awe. The Maya built here without the wheel, without metal tools, and without beasts of burden. Yet they erected pyramid temples that soar over 200 feet into the sky, vast palaces, ball courts, and paved plazas, all assembled from limestone quarried locally and shaped with stone tools and burning determination. The Great Plaza, flanked by Temple 1 and Temple 2, feels like a stage set for the gods, a place where kings ascended pyramid steps in resplendent costumes to commune with ancestors and celestial powers. This architectural genius was matched by intellectual triumphs. The Maya developed a complex writing system, a precise calendar more accurate than any in Europe at the time, and a deep understanding of astronomy that allowed them to predict planetary movements and solar eclipses with remarkable accuracy. Their city planning itself reflected this cosmic order, with structures aligned to the solstice sun or the path of Venus. They were masters of their world. Which makes what happened next so profoundly unsettling. Within a span of perhaps just a few generations, starting around the 9th century, the beating heart of Tikal, and indeed much of the southern Maya lowlands, fell silent. The great monuments stopped being built, the dated royal inscriptions on stelae ceased, the grand palaces were abandoned, the population dwindled and scattered, and the relentless jungle began its slow, patient work of reclaiming stone and plaster. This was not a single event, but a cascading failure, a collapse that remains one of history's most debated mysteries. So what went wrong? Experts see a perfect storm of pressures, a civilization pushing against its ecological limits. The city's success likely led to overpopulation, straining the ability to feed everyone, to clear land for agriculture, and to produce lime plaster for their buildings. Vast tracts of forest were cut down. This deforestation may have altered local rainfall patterns, contributing to severe, prolonged droughts evidenced in lake sediment cores. A thirsty, hungry population is a fragile one. Political instability and warfare between rival city-states, depicted vividly in Maya art, would have further strained resources and shattered trade networks. It is likely that faith in the divine right of kings eroded as their rituals failed to bring rain and prosperity. The collapse, therefore, was likely a slow unraveling of the social contract, where each challenge amplified the next. People did not vanish, but they likely migrated away from the great centers, returning to smaller, more sustainable village life. Walking through Tikal's Grand Plaza today, you feel this duality more powerfully than anywhere. The awe at the achievement is palpable, the sheer will to create such grandeur, but it is accompanied by a haunting silence, broken only by the calls of howler monkeys and the rustle of leaves where once thousands lived, traded, and prayed. Tikal stands as a monumental lesson in balance. It shows us that intellectual brilliance and artistic splendor are not shields against the fundamental laws of nature. A society can chart the stars and yet fail to foresee the consequences of its own growth. The stones ask us what it truly means for a civilization to endure, and what whispers of our own world might be heard in their silent, jungle-cloaked ruins. This fascination with celestial alignment, so central to the Maya, finds a colder, starker expression on a remote British plain. Their silent rings hold a history written in stone, not ink. Scattered across the borderlands of Senegal and the Gambia are the Senegambian stone circles, a vast and ancient landscape of over 1,000 individual megalithic rings. This is not a single site, but a sprawling tradition that unfolded over nearly 2,000 years, from roughly the 3rd century before the Common Era to the 16th century after. The circles are formed from pillars of laterite, a reddish iron-rich stone carefully quarried, shaped, and erected to stand in precise rings. Many of these circles mark burial sites, with the silent stones acting as guardians for the individuals laid to rest within their circumference. Yet to see them only as cemeteries is to miss their greater mystery. The scale and uniformity of the circles, like the impressive groupings at Washu and Kerbach, speak of something much larger than local custom. They reveal a shared cultural language that resonated across a wide region for generations, a tradition so powerful it survived dramatic shifts in climate and the rise and fall of neighboring kingdoms. What truly baffles experts is the sheer continuity. How did the knowledge of quarrying these stones, some weighing several tons, and the ritual practice of arranging them, pass so faithfully from one century to the next through eras of plenty and hardship? The organization required was immense. Laterite is extremely hard when dry, suggesting the builders may have worked the stone during the wet season when it was softer, a clever adaptation to their environment. The pillars were then transported, likely using ropes and wooden rollers, and set upright in holes packed with smaller stones for stability. This was a coordinated, communal effort repeated countless times across the landscape. The purpose likely wove together the earthly and the celestial. While their connection to burial rites is clear, researchers have noted that certain alignments within the circles correspond to the rising and setting points of the sun and moon. This hints at a dual function where the circles served as both a sacred space to honor ancestors and a practical observatory to track the cycles that govern planting and harvest. They were anchors in both the social and the cosmic order. This makes the Senegambian circles a profound, often overlooked chapter in human history. They stand as a monumental testament to a sophisticated West African culture that invested its collective labor not in fortifications or palaces, but in these enduring rings of stone, creating a permanent dialogue between the community, its ancestors, and the heavens above. What unified vision could inspire such a consistent, continent-spanning tradition for 2 millennia? That same drive to build heaven-reaching structures in alignment with cosmic power finds a stunning parallel across the Atlantic, in a city where pyramids were not tombs but portals. Its pyramids were not tombs but sacred mountains that touched the sky. Teotihuacan is a city of staggering order, a vast urban grid laid out with a geometric precision that feels almost modern. At its peak around 450 years after the Common Era, it was a metropolis of perhaps 125,000 people, a colossal melting pot and one of the largest cities on Earth at the time. Yet for all its grandeur, the first and most profound mystery is the identity of its builders. We do not know what they called themselves or their city. The name we use today, Teotihuacan, meaning the place where the gods were created, was given by the Aztecs who stumbled upon its magnificent ruins centuries after its fall and believed it was the birthplace of the current era of the world. Who were these anonymous architects? The city's art and artifacts show influences from across ancient Mexico, suggesting it was a cosmopolitan hub, but its original founding culture remains a silent enigma. The city's design is a masterclass in sacred geometry. The central artery, the Street of the Dead, runs for over a mile, flanked by platforms and temples, and points directly to the sacred mountain of Cerro Gordo. This was no accident. The entire city was a terrestrial map of a celestial and spiritual landscape. The two colossal structures anchoring the city, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon, are feats of engineering. The Pyramid of the Sun is one of the largest structures of its kind in the Americas, containing over 2 million tons of adobe brick and rubble. Its alignment is precise. From the pyramid's summit, an observer witnesses the sun set directly behind the peak of Cerro Gordo on the days of its zenith passage, a moment when the earthly and divine realms were believed to connect. Further research suggests the city's grid may also align with the setting of the Pleiades star cluster, a significant group in Mesoamerican cosmology associated with renewal and the calendar. This cosmic alignment speaks of a society that saw itself as an integral part of a living universe. But the mysteries are not just in the grand plan, they are buried within the structures themselves. Deep inside the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent, archaeologists discovered something startling: pools of liquid mercury. In another area, thick sheets of mica, a mineral with remarkable thermal and electrical insulating properties, were found layered between stone slabs. Both materials held deep ritual significance. Mercury, with its shimmering, liquid metal form, may have represented a sacred river or lake of the underworld. Mica, which sparkles brilliantly, might have symbolized a portal to the spirit world or been used for its reflective properties in darkened chambers. Their presence hints at ceremonies and technologies of light, reflection, and symbolic transformation that we can only dimly perceive. This carefully ordered world did not fade quietly. Around 550 years after the Common Era, Teotihuacan met a violent and fiery end. Evidence shows that the major temples and elite residences along the Street of the Dead were systematically burned. This was not a random conquest but a targeted destruction, suggesting a massive internal uprising. A revolution from within where the people turned against their own rulers and the gods they represented. The exact catalyst remains unknown, perhaps a prolonged drought, a failure of the ruling ideology, or extreme social inequality that finally boiled over. The result was the same. The great metropolis was abandoned, its population scattered, leaving behind a ghost city of silent pyramids. The builders vanished, taking their name and their full story with them, leaving only a monument so grand that later cultures could only assume it was built by gods. From this valley of anonymous architects, we descend beneath the waves off the coast of Turkey, where a different kind of ghost city rests in silent, sunken stillness. A stone sarcophagus stands sentinel in the turquoise shallows, its lid forever open to the sky. The sunken city of Simna, off the coast of modern-day Kalahari in Turkey, presents a scene of serene and startling clarity. Here, the ancient Lycian city did not vanish, it simply sank. Sections of defensive walls, staircases carved into bedrock, and solemn rock-cut tombs now lie partially submerged in the clear Mediterranean waters. This is not a puzzle of forgotten engineering or lost purpose, but a stark lesson in the living geology of our planet. The region is profoundly tectonically active, and a series of seismic events or gradual land subsidence cause the coastline itself to drop, allowing the sea to claim these streets and structures over time. For experts, the central mystery is not the how, but the precise when and in what sequence. Piecing together the timeline of this slow-motion flood is a complex archaeological and geological detective story. Each submerged step and waterlogged foundation stone is a clue in understanding the pattern of earthquakes and shifts that reshaped this coastline, potentially over centuries rather than in a single catastrophic day. This makes Simna uniquely valuable. It is a perfectly preserved snapshot of a geological process in mid-action, a city caught between two worlds, a lone Lycian tomb, its chamber now reflecting the shimmering water, creates an image of haunting beauty that speaks to the transient nature of human endeavors against the immense timescale of the Earth. This site forces a profound shift in perspective. We often think of ruins as places abandoned by people, but Sacsayhuamán shows us a city abandoned by the land itself. It is a tangible, visible reminder that the stage upon which civilizations build is never truly stable. The ground can rise or fall, seas can advance or retreat, and mountains can grow, actively editing the physical record of our past. This realization echoes out across the world's coastlines, prompting a compelling question. If this happened here, how many other ports, settlements, and trading posts from antiquity now lie beneath the waves, their stories sealed by rising seas or sinking shores, waiting for their moment to be rediscovered? From this city claimed by the sea, we ascend to a mountain fortress that represents the opposite extreme, a kingdom that chose the most inaccessible peak imaginable, not because the land was receding, but to forever escape the reach of any enemy. Its summit is a fortress of the mind, carved from a single rock that rises 200 meters from the jungle floor. Sigiriya is less a ruin and more of a statement, a 5th-century proclamation of power, art, and profound anxiety made permanent in stone. King Kasyapa built this sky palace in a breathtakingly short period, around the year 477, transforming a volcanic plug into an impregnable royal citadel. The story behind its creation is a tapestry of palace intrigue, a tale where a son seized the throne from his father and, in fear of his brother's rightful claim, sought the ultimate refuge, a palace in the sky. The ambition is staggering. Engineers terraced the rock sides, constructed a complex system of water tanks and gardens at its base that still function, and built elegant pavilions and pools on its summit. The approach itself was a psychological journey. Visitors would walk through serene water gardens, then ascend a stairway flanked by a gallery of breathtaking frescoes, portraits of celestial maidens whose purpose and identity remain a subject of scholarly debate. They could be depictions of royal consorts, goddesses, or participants in cloud-born rituals. Then came the final approach through the massive gatehouse fashioned in the form of a lion, where the path led between its giant paws and up through its mouth, a symbol of terrifying royal power. Only the colossal paws remain today, but they hint at the awe the full structure must have inspired. Yet, the most intimate and baffling feature is the mirror wall. This is a parapet wall sheathed in a highly polished plaster, mixed with a secret blend of materials including egg white, honey, and possibly crushed seashells or fine quartz, to create a surface with a porcelain-like mirror finish. The technological knowledge to create such a glaze and to maintain its reflective quality in a tropical climate speaks of a sophisticated understanding of materials science. The wall's purpose was deeply personal. As King Kasyapa walked along this gallery, he would see his own reflection shimmering beside the jungle vistas, a perpetual reminder of his own presence and power, a ruler literally watching himself rule. This detail reveals the profound paradox of Sigiriya. It is a masterpiece of urban planning and hydraulic engineering, a place of stunning beauty and artistic refinement, yet it was born from fear and maintained through isolation. It was the ultimate gated community, a luxurious prison in the clouds designed to keep the world out and its insecure king safe within. This makes its subsequent history so poignant. After Kasyapa's death in battle, the site was almost immediately abandoned as a royal palace. The sheer impracticality of maintaining such a vertical city likely contributed to its rapid desertion. It was soon given over to Buddhist monks who converted it into a monastery, a place of quiet contemplation that stood in stark contrast to its previous life of opulent paranoia. This rapid transformation is the final layer of the enigma. Why would a society invest such immense resources, technological innovation, and artistic genius into a project used for less than 2 decades? The answer may lie in understanding the human drive itself. Sigiriya stands as a monument to what a single determined individual, armed with absolute authority and a profound sense of vulnerability, can will into being. It is a lesson in how fear can be just as powerful a motivator as faith, and how the desire for legacy can carve itself into the very face of a mountain. From this solitary rock of ambition, we descend to a very different landscape, a desert valley scattered with stones that speak not of one king's will, but of a collective and mysterious tradition. Their stones rise from the peat like frozen dancers in a silent, ancient ceremony. The standing stones of Kalahari on Scotland's windswept Isle of Lewis form a hauntingly beautiful arrangement. Unlike the more famous ring of Stonehenge, Kalahari is laid out in a cruciform pattern, a central circle of stones with long avenues radiating north, south, east, and west like arms reaching out to the landscape. These monoliths of Lewisian gneiss, some standing over 15 feet tall, were erected around 5,000 years ago, a time when metal was unknown in this part of the world. Their stark beauty against the dramatic Scottish sky is undeniable, but the deeper mystery is etched in their alignment with the heavens. While many ancient sites track the sun, the Kalahari stones seem to hold a conversation with a far more complex celestial partner, the moon. The central stone rows appear to target the extreme rising and setting points of the moon in its long, 18.6-year cycle. This is not a simple annual event like a solstice, but a slow, majestic dance that takes nearly 2 decades to complete. To recognize this pattern, to mark it permanently in stone, implies a society of patient observers. It suggests generations of people watching the night sky, recording the moon's slow wanderings along the horizon, and passing that precise knowledge down through oral tradition for centuries. This was a long-term investment in cosmic understanding. The choice of location amplifies the sacred feeling. The site is nestled within a natural amphitheater of low hills, with views out to sea and mountains. The landscape itself seems part of the design, with certain stones lining up with distant peaks that may have served as natural foresights for astronomical observations. This integration of built structure and natural world hints at a belief system where the earthly and celestial were intimately connected. The effort to create Kalahari speaks of remarkable social cohesion. The stones, weighing up to 5 tons each, were dragged across the rugged terrain and levered into place by a Neolithic community without wheels or metal tools. This was not a casual undertaking. It required a shared vision powerful enough to mobilize and sustain labor over many years, likely driven by a profound cosmological belief. The stones were more than an observatory, they were a temple. What rituals unfolded here under the shifting lunar light? Perhaps ceremonies to mark the moon's major standstills, times believed to hold special power for planting, hunting, or communicating with ancestral spirits. The silent stones guard those secrets, but their precise alignment remains a clear signal. They tell us that 5 millennia ago, on this remote island, people were not just surviving, they were seeking meaning in the slow, grand cycles of the cosmos, building a permanent prayer to the wandering moon. This northern stone circle offers a different celestial key, one of patient lunar observation rather than solar spectacle. From these misty isles, we return to the Americas, to a city where the monuments are not stone sentinels but vast, sculpted earth. Its skyline was not of stone but of shaped earth rising from the fertile floodplain. Across the Mississippi River from modern St. Louis, the Cahokia Mounds stand as a monumental whisper from a forgotten metropolis. This was the largest pre-Columbian settlement north of Mexico, a sprawling urban center that at its peak, around the year 1050, was home to perhaps 20,000 people. Its footprint contained over 120 earthen mounds, ranging from simple platforms to the staggering Monk's Mound, a colossal earthen pyramid covering over 14 acres and rising 100 feet high. To stand atop it is to grasp the scale of a vision that transformed the landscape itself. The sheer logistics are the first layer of awe. Monk's Mound alone required moving an estimated 22 million cubic feet of earth, all carried in woven baskets by a society that had no beasts of burden, no wheels, and no metal tools. This was not the work of a simple chiefdom, but of a highly organized, stratified society capable of mobilizing and coordinating labor on a scale that rivals old-world contemporaries. The city's layout reveals a sophisticated mind. A vast central plaza covering nearly 50 acres was flanked by the major mounds, creating a ceremonial and political heart. To the west, archaeologists uncovered the remains of Woodhenge, a circle of large cedar posts that functioned as a sophisticated solar calendar. By observing the sunrise from the center of the circle against specific marker posts, the Cahokians could accurately determine the solstices and equinoxes, governing the agricultural and ritual cycles of their world. This combination of monumental earthwork and precise astronomy points to a complex cosmology and a powerful, centralized authority. Yet for all its grandeur, Cahokia presents a profound historical silence. We do not know what its people called themselves or their city. The name Cahokia comes from a later Native American group that lived nearby when Europeans arrived. They left no written records, so their stories, laws, and beliefs must be pieced together from archaeology alone. This makes their rapid ascent and equally rapid decline all the more baffling. Within a few generations, this city emerged as a dominant cultural and trade hub, drawing people and ideas from across the continent. Then, starting in the 13th century, it began a steady fade. By the 14th century, the great city was largely abandoned. So what happened? The leading theories paint a picture of a society pushing against its ecological limits. Some studies suggest that a period of favorable climate allowed for population boom and construction, but that this was followed by a series of severe droughts in the 1300s, putting immense strain on food and water supplies. Deforestation from building and fuel may have led to erosion and flooding in the agricultural bottomlands. There is also evidence of increased social unrest and conflict in its later years. The most poignant clue comes from a burial mound where the remains of over 50 young women were found interred together, suggesting a single, profound event that impacted the community. This, combined with other signs, hints at a period of significant social stress. The people did not vanish but likely dispersed, rejoining smaller, more sustainable communities across the region, their grand urban experiment left behind. Cahokia's legacy is a powerful corrective to history. It shatters the old narrative that complex, urban societies in ancient North America were limited to Mesoamerica. Here, in the heart of the continent, a Native American civilization achieved a level of social organization and communal labor that demands a rewriting of our textbooks. It asks us to look at the Great Plains and river valleys not as empty land waiting for history, but as a stage where brilliant, ephemeral empires once built their own versions of heaven from earth and sky. From this lost city of soil, we voyage across the greatest ocean to a tiny island where wealth was measured not in earth, but in stone so large it could never be stolen. Its canals shimmer with a green, silent stillness, a city built not on land but wrestled from the sea itself. On the remote island of Pohnpei, the ruins of Nan Madol are a labyrinth of stone and water, a place that feels less like an ancient capital and more like a dream half-remembered. This is the Venice of the Pacific, a ceremonial and political center for the Sodalor dynasty, constructed from around the year 1200. Yet its scale and method defy all logic for its isolated location. The city is not one structure, but a network of about 100 artificial islets, each one painstakingly built atop the coral reefs. The foundation of every platform is a puzzle of colossal basalt logs, prism-shaped columns quarried from the volcanic rock on the other side of the island. These are not small stones. Some of these geometric logs weigh up to 50 tons. Imagine a stone tree trunk the size of a bus, and then picture thousands of them. They form the skeletal frame of each islet, with the interior filled with coral rubble to create stable, raised land in the middle of the tidal flats. Then the builders carved a grid of canals through this artificial landscape, so that the city must be navigated by boat, a floating world of stone. The central, baffling question is one of pure physics. How did a pre-industrial society on a small island, with a limited population, achieve this? The prevailing theory is that the massive basalt columns were floated across the water on rafts, a precarious and astonishing feat of maritime engineering requiring precise knowledge of tides and currents. The coordination of labor, the quarrying, the transport, and the assembly would have demanded a social hierarchy of absolute authority and a shared vision spanning generations. This effort was so incomprehensible to later generations that local legend explains it not with engineering, but with magic. Stories tell of powerful sorcerers who chanted the stones into the air, flying them from the quarry to the site. This folk memory is a profound clue. It represents the collective awe of a people looking back at an achievement so grand it seemed supernatural. A cultural way of saying the truth was beyond ordinary understanding. The city's purpose was equally profound. It served as a ritual and administrative heart, with specific islets dedicated to ceremonies, food preparation, and canoe building. The most sacred area, Nan Madol, is a walled enclosure containing royal tombs, a place of deep spiritual power. Yet this meticulously ordered world did not last. Around the year 1628, the Sordalor dynasty fell, and Nan Madol was abandoned. The reasons are woven into the same fabric of isolation that made its construction so miraculous. Some theories point to overexploitation of local resources, or social rebellion against a rigid and demanding ruling class. The very canals that defined the city may have contributed to its end, as stagnant waters fostered illness. Ultimately, maintaining such a complex, artificial ecosystem may have simply become unsustainable. Today, Nan Madol stands in haunting silence, its canals choked with mangrove roots, a testament to a civilization that bent a seascape to its will, only to be reclaimed by the very element it conquered. It is a unique and isolated marvel, a city that seems to float eternally between the tangible evidence of its stones and the elusive mists of its story. What does it tell us about the human drive to create order, even in the most improbable places? From this floating city of stone, we step into a much darker, more intimate space, where the art is not of monuments but of the human hand itself. Their hands press against the rock from a distance of 90 centuries. The Cueva de los Monos, the Cave of Hands, is not a ruin of stone but a gallery of skin and breath. In a remote Patagonian canyon in Argentina, the walls are alive with a chorus of stenciled hands, over 800 of them, alongside dynamic scenes of guanaco hunts and enigmatic geometric patterns. Created over a vast span, from roughly 13,000 to 9,500 years ago, these are among the most vivid and intimate artworks from the ancient Americas. The technique is simple in concept, yet profound in its persistence. The artists would place a hand against the rock wall and blow a mixture of mineral pigment, often iron oxide for red, kaolin for white, or manganese for black, through a hollow bone or reed, leaving a perfect negative imprint on the stone. The result is a direct physical connection that feels startlingly immediate. You are not looking at a symbol of a hand, you are witnessing the exact outline of a specific individual's hand, a moment of contact preserved across an unimaginable gulf of time. The hands appear in clusters, overlapping in different sizes and colors, suggesting this was not a single event, but a tradition repeated by generation after generation. Some are left hands, some are right, and a few show fingers that appear shortened, which some researchers interpret as possible evidence of a ritual practice or a stylistic choice, though its true meaning is lost. This repetition is the core of the mystery that captivates experts. Why here? Why hands? The canyon's secluded, dramatic location suggests it was a special place, set apart from everyday life. It may have been a sacred site for rites of passage where adolescents left their mark upon entering adulthood, a permanent record of their new identity. Perhaps each hand represented a member of a clan, a signature of belonging, or the images could have held spiritual power, a form of sympathetic magic where imprinting one's hand on the wall granted protection and success in the perilous hunts depicted nearby. The hunting scenes themselves are masterpieces of early narrative art, showing guanacos, the wild ancestors of llamas, pursued by human figures with throwing weapons, their lines conveying motion and communal effort. These scenes might be records of actual events, instructional diagrams, or prayers for a successful hunt. The cave's artwork provides an unparalleled window into the lives and minds of some of the earliest people to call South America home. Yet, for all its intimacy, it maintains a respectful silence. We can see their hands, but we cannot hear their voices or know the specific stories they told around the fires that once lit this cavern. The Cave of Hands transcends archaeology to become something universal. It speaks to a fundamental human impulse, the deep-seated need to say, "I was here. This is me, my hand touched this world." In an era of mammoths and glaciers, people in this canyon felt the same urge we feel today when we trace a shape in the sand or leave our own mark, however fleeting. It is a testament to memory, identity, and the profound desire to communicate with a future we will never see, a message in pigment and stone that simply states we existed. This primal impulse to encode meaning and identity into geometric form finds its ultimate, perplexing expression in a final site, where the shapes are perfect, massive, and utterly silent. The final stone circle lies not on a windswept plain, but deep within the earth, a city carved from darkness. In the heart of Turkey's Cappadocia region, the ancient underground city of Derinkuyu descends over 85 meters deep, a vertical labyrinth of astonishing complexity. This is not a simple cave network, but a meticulously engineered subterranean metropolis, with multiple levels containing everything a community needed to survive for months, perhaps even years. Archaeologists have uncovered living quarters, communal kitchens, wine and oil presses, chapels, stables, and even schools, all carved from the soft, workable volcanic rock known as tuff. At its peak, this hidden world could have supported up to 20,000 people, a staggering figure that redefines our understanding of ancient urban planning. While its primary purpose as a refuge from invading armies is well understood, the sheer scale and sophistication of its construction continue to baffle and astonish experts. The logistics of creating a self-sufficient city entirely underground required an extraordinary level of foresight. Each level could be sealed off from the others by massive, circular stone doors, thick as mill wheels that rolled across the corridors, providing security in depth. A brilliant ventilation system of over 50 shafts, some stretching all the way to the surface, ensured a constant supply of fresh air to the deepest chambers, preventing suffocation and dispersing smoke from cooking fires. Ingenious wells tapped directly into underground water sources, creating an independent supply that could not be poisoned or cut off by besiegers above. The planning for waste removal, food storage, and social order in such a confined, lightless space speaks to a society with remarkable communal discipline and engineering genius. This raises a profound historical question. Which civilization first began this monumental excavation? Some evidence points to the Phrygians around the 8th century before the Common Era, while later expansions are clearly linked to early Christian communities seeking shelter from Roman persecution. The city likely grew over centuries, with each generation adding new levels and refining the systems, a cumulative project born of recurring necessity. Derinkuyu represents a different kind of architectural marvel. It is not a monument to celestial gods or royal power, but a testament to the human instinct for preservation. It is a masterpiece of retreat and survival, a reminder that sometimes the most profound act of a civilization is not to reach for the sky, but to dig in, to endure, and to protect the fragile flame of community within the very body of the earth. Having journeyed from the world's highest peaks to its deepest shelters, we have explored 25 ruins that each baffle experts in their own way. From the celestial ambition of the pyramids to the communal faith of Göbekli Tepe, from the hydraulic genius of Petra to the silent endurance of Derinkuyu, a common thread emerges. These sites are not merely old stones, they are conversations. They are humanity's enduring attempt to answer the fundamental questions of existence, to find order in chaos, meaning in the cosmos, and safety in a perilous world, using the most permanent materials they could find. They represent the collective will of communities who chose to invest their labor not just in survival, but in legacy. Each one, in its own language of stone, earth, and alignment, asks us to look beyond the surface of history and listen for the echoes of the minds that built them. They challenge our timelines, expand our understanding of human capability, and ultimately, they connect us to the timeless urge to build something that says, "We were here, and this is what we believed was important enough to last." These patterns are not random echoes, but a kind of ancient grammar written in stone and sky. When we step back from individual ruins, a fascinating portrait of our shared human past comes into focus. Across continents and millennia, from the standing stones of Kalahari to the pyramids of Giza, a profound relationship with the cosmos repeats itself. These were not just buildings, they were calendars and compasses. Ancient architects consistently anchored their greatest works to the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. This tells us something essential. The desire to map our place in the universe, to predict the seasons and honor celestial cycles, was a near-universal driver. It was a way to impose order on a chaotic world, to align human life with the grand, reliable rhythms overhead. Whether it was the solstice sunrise piercing a temple corridor or a stone row marking the moon's slow dance, this celestial connection provided a foundation of meaning that could unite an entire society. That unity is the second powerful pattern. The sheer scale of labor at these sites speaks of something far greater than a king's command. Moving a 50-ton block of basalt for Nan Madol, or coordinating the quarrying of millions of stones for the Great Pyramid, required more than forced labor. It demanded a shared belief, a collective story so compelling that thousands of people would dedicate their lives to a project they might never see finished. This points to incredibly strong social cohesion. These were cultures where identity was woven into a communal vision, where contributing to a monumental temple or city was an act of faith and belonging. The monument itself became the physical embodiment of that shared story, a permanent reminder of what the community held sacred. Then there is the puzzle of parallel invention. How do we explain the eerily similar polygonal stonework at Sacsayhuamán in Peru and in the ancient walls of Tarragona in Spain? Cultures separated by an ocean with no evidence of contact arrived at the same brilliant solution for building earthquake-resistant walls without mortar. This phenomenon appears again and again in the celestial observatories, in the sophisticated water management systems, in the very act of pyramid building. It suggests that the human mind, when faced with universal challenges like stability, survival, and understanding the heavens, can converge on similar elegant solutions. This is the power of independent innovation, a testament to the innate ingenuity of people everywhere. Yet it also leaves a tantalizing space for wonder. Could there have been faint, long-lost threads of exchange, ideas traveling further and earlier than our current maps allow. The pattern does not demand a single answer, but it invites us to remain open to the astonishing creativity of the ancient world. Ultimately, these recurring themes reveal a common human journey. Our ancestors, in their diverse environments, were driven by the same fundamental needs: to connect with something larger than themselves, to create order and legacy, and to ensure the survival and meaning of their community. The stone circles, the mountain citadels, the subterranean refuges are all different answers to the same eternal questions. By seeing these patterns, we stop viewing these places as isolated anomalies or mere curiosities. We begin to see a global tapestry of human aspiration. Each thread is a local culture with its own unique voice, but the overall picture is one of a species relentlessly striving to understand its world and leave a mark upon it. This shift in perspective is crucial because it frames the final and perhaps most exciting chapter of this story: how we are using the tools of the future to finally listen to what these stones have been trying to tell us all along. The silent stones are finally beginning to speak, not in words but in streams of data. The mysteries of these ancient ruins are no longer locked in the past. They are being actively reshaped by a new generation of tools that see through earth, stone, and dense jungle canopy. This is not the end of discovery, but a thrilling new beginning. Technologies like LiDAR, which fires laser pulses from aircraft to create a three-dimensional map of the ground below, have utterly transformed our understanding of sites like Angkor Wat and the Maya cities. Where explorers once saw an impenetrable green wall, LiDAR reveals the ghostly grid of streets, canals, and house mounds of vast, forgotten urban sprawls, rewriting our estimates of population and sophistication in an instant. Similarly, ground-penetrating radar sends pulses into the earth, revealing buried foundations, hidden tombs, and the layout of entire settlements without ever lifting a shovel. And deep within the Great Pyramid, muon tomography uses cosmic rays to detect hidden voids, like the large chamber recently discovered above the Grand Gallery, proving that even the most studied monument on Earth still holds physical secrets. These tools are turning centuries of speculation into concrete, mappable evidence. They allow archaeologists to ask bigger questions, to move from wondering what a single building was for, to understanding how an entire civilization organized its landscape, managed its resources, and connected its sacred sites. The story is expanding from isolated monuments to interconnected worlds. This technological revolution is paired with a profound shift in thinking. Archaeology is no longer a solitary pursuit. Today, it is a conversation. Geologists analyze stone quarries and erosion patterns to date structures and understand ancient climates. Climatologists study ice cores and lake sediments to pinpoint periods of drought or abundance that could have triggered a society's rise or collapse. Geneticists trace ancient human migration through DNA extracted from remains, revealing surprising connections between distant peoples. By weaving these threads together, researchers are building a rich, multidimensional context. We are no longer just studying a temple, we are understanding the environmental pressures its builders faced, the trade routes that brought them ideas, and the climatic shifts that may have tested their faith to its breaking point. This interdisciplinary approach is humbling. It reminds us that these ruins were not created in a vacuum, but were living parts of a dynamic system of people and planet. As we re-examine old excavation reports and museum artifacts with these new lenses, established narratives are being gently challenged and sometimes overturned. A pot shard, once seen as proof of trade, might now be sourced to a specific clay deposit through chemical analysis, redrawing an ancient map. A legend of a flood, once dismissed as myth, might find corroboration in soil layers showing a massive tsunami. With every answered question, a new, more nuanced mystery often emerges. The future of understanding these places lies in this powerful marriage: a respectful dialogue between cutting-edge science and rigorous, on-the-ground archaeology. It promises a decade of discovery where the greatest revelation may not be a hidden tomb, but a completely new way of seeing the familiar. The journey through these 25 baffling sites ultimately leads us here, to the edge of a new frontier, where the past is not a closed book, but an open field, waiting for the next beam of light to reveal its hidden contours. Their stories are not endings, but invitations. Our journey across continents and millennia, from temples older than agriculture to cities sleeping beneath the waves, reveals a common truth. These 25 sites baffle experts for the most beautiful reason imaginable. They are not failures of our understanding, but towering successes of ancient vision. Each one represents a pinnacle of human ingenuity and spiritual depth, a moment where a society poured its collective soul into stone, earth, and alignment. They challenge the comfortable, linear story we often tell about the past, forcing us to acknowledge that history is not a simple march forward, but a complex, branching puzzle. So many of the pieces are still missing, waiting in the soil, hidden in the data, or whispered in the alignment of a stone with a distant star. This incompleteness is not a flaw, it is the very source of wonder. It invites us to embrace the unknown, to feel the thrill of the search itself. The quiet patience of an archaeologist brushing dust from a carving, the precise calculation of an astronomer checking an ancient alignment, the shared awe of a visitor standing in a sacred plaza, these are all part of the same continuous conversation with those who came before us. The lesson etched into these ruins is clear. History is not a book that has been finished and closed. It is a story we are still writing, with every new scan of a pyramid, every reinterpretation of a symbol, every voice from a descendant community that adds its chapter. Our map of the human past is being redrawn in real time, becoming richer, more connected, and more astonishing with each discovery. If this exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity in you, consider joining us for more journeys into the mysteries of our shared heritage. We would love to hear your thoughts. In the comments below, tell us which of these ancient ruins you find the most profoundly mysterious, and why. Thank you for exploring the world's greatest puzzles with us.